Hi, welcome to the Fix It Fox channel. My name is Rob Fox, and today we're going to be repairing some drywall behind a door. It's going to be a little different because it's not just going to be an easy patch. I think we're going to have to remove the drywall all the way from one stud to the other to replace the whole thing, because if we just do a simple patch job, I think next time the door is opened really hard, it'll just put a hole right through that patch. So we got to do it the right way and go from stud to stud. So let's grab our tools and get to work. All right, this wall texture, this is the knockdown texture, but I was reading it and it says here that you need to wait 2 to 5 hours before you can actually paint over it. And I just don't have that kind of time as a professional. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna cover that patch with some regular orange peel texture, and we'll try and knock it down, see if it works. Usually it doesn't really work, but we're gonna have to be satisfied with that. So as you can see, there's a hole behind the door where the door handle has gone through the drywall. So if we just do a patch, which it looks like a patch has already been made and failed, the same thing's going to happen. The door handle is going to go right through. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the studs and we're going to cut a rectangle out and we're going to replace the whole thing from stud to stud. So the first thing I want to do is just draw a couple straight lines. So we have something to follow that's nice and straight as we attempt to find the studs. It's probably too high. Yeah, I can feel the stud right about here. So the middle of the stud is probably about there. So let's mark a line. And cut it out. Okay, studs are usually found 16 inches on center, so if we mark 16 inches, we should find the middle of our other stud right about here. And there we go, stud to stud. Okay, we've squared the edges up now and gotten the old fasteners out of the studs, and we're ready to install some new drywall. What you may have noticed while I was removing the drywall is that there's not just one layer but two layers, and you'll find this a lot of times in bathrooms and areas where they want a little more soundproofing. And so with two layers of drywall, you don't get a lot of the noise traveling between rooms that you might when you only have one layer of drywall. So wasn't really prepared for this today, but I've got enough drywall, so it's going to be easy. I measured this out. It's about 1 inch wide, so if I use two pieces of 1/2 inch drywall stacked on top of each other, it should mesh nicely with the existing wall. So let's get to that. About 16 1/4 by 4 1/2. Perfect fit. In cases like this, it's good to carry some non-standard size drywall screws with you. If I just had the regular 1 5/8 or 1 1/4 inch drywall screws, it just wouldn't be enough to go through 2 sheets of drywall. So fortunately I had some 2-inch screws with me today, and we're going to use those to attach the drywall to the studs. Of course, anybody who does drywall knows that you want to countersink the head into the drywall, but not break the paper. They sell attachments that you can put on the end of your bit, but I do this so often that I don't need that attachment. The attachment will stop the screw from driving too far into the drywall and breaking the paper. Okay, also what we want to do is put a couple of screws into the existing drywall, because as you may have noticed, when we took out the old drywall, we also took out a couple of fasteners, and so now this portion of the drywall and this portion of the drywall is going to not be as secured as it once was. So we just want to make sure it's going to be secure and no cracking will occur in the future. Okay, so what I've done is I've just gone ahead and cleaned up some of the edges to make sure that there's not any loose ends sticking out that are going to interfere with the plastering that's going to come next. So what we want to do now is just pre-fill some of these holes with our plaster mix, and then get some mesh tape around it, and then plaster the whole thing over. Mixed up some plaster. This is a special compound that I typically like to use on my jobs because I don't have the luxury of putting up regular plaster and then going away and letting it dry for 24 hours, coming back and sanding it, putting a second coat on, or if it's good enough as is, if it's smooth enough as is, beginning to paint it at that point. I need to get into a job, get it plastered and get it painted and leave and have the job finished by the end of the day. So what I use is this compound that's a quick drying compound. It's got an agent in it that causes the plaster to dry really fast. And the great thing about this is after 20 minutes I can wet sand it, and after 90 minutes I can paint it with no deleterious, no bad effects. The paint won't peel off as the compound continues to dry underneath the paint. now that we've pre-filled some of the gaps and holes, we can put our tape on, mesh tape, and we won't get as many air bubbles beneath the tape that will mess with the finish. And of course, you use mesh tape or the paper tape at all the seams, because if in the future the wall does move a little bit, the tape will hold the plaster together and prevent cracking from occurring at the joins or the seams of your patch. All right, now to cover the tape with some of our plaster compound. It looked like I was doing a lot of the same things over and over again, but what I was doing was trying to get the plaster built up thick enough that it would cover the mesh tape, because you don't want the mesh tape sticking out once it's dry. At the same time, you want it thin enough that it's not going to be a bulge in the wall when the patch is over with.
Minutes later.
Okay, as you can see, this plaster has started to dry around the outside, getting a little lighter in texture, and when you touch it, it doesn't immediately create an imprint, and so it's approximately ready to be wet sanded. What I do is I buy one of these wet sanding sponges. This rough side is more for the edges, where you can sand it a bit while you're smoothing it out. And then the soft side here is for the middle part, where you're just trying to take out the little ridges and smooth it over. Now, as you can tell on this wall, we've got some knockdown texture, so we don't have to make this perfectly smooth because it's going to be covered up for the most part with the texture, but we do want to knock down the high ridges and of course blend the edges in with the surrounding wall. So let's get to it. So it's been about 90 minutes now since we put the compound on the wall, and it's getting ready to, it's getting dry enough to the point where we can paint it now. The first thing we want to do is put a little bit of texture on so it doesn't look, I don't know if you can see this here, but so it doesn't look like that, where you've just got this flat patch around a textured area. We're going to try and texture our area so it doesn't stand out as much as this other patch here. However, as I did say at the store, we're going to have to use this orange peel texture because the knockdown texture just takes way too long to dry. So what you want to do is make sure that you protect the floor, because this stuff goes everywhere. And if you're doing a small contained area, you probably want to put plastic around, but because this isn't all that contained, there's no other color here, there's nothing that we can really get the texture on. We don't have to protect it as much. We'll just paint wherever this texture sprays onto. But let's spray this on. Just want to do circular motions and just try and match the heaviness of the surrounding texture. So here we go. There, that looks pretty good. Now we'll just let that set up and dry for a few minutes. It only takes about 5 minutes to dry, and then it'll be ready to paint. All right, the texture has had enough time to dry, and as you can see, it's nice and hard on there. Nothing's coming off of my fingers, so we can, we're just about ready to paint. Because this is semi-gloss paint though, I want to make sure that the surface is scuffed up before we put new paint on it so that the new paint adheres to the old paint. So just outside of where the texture was sprayed, we just want to give that a little scuffing. There we go, with a little bit of sandpaper. This is just 220 grit. You know, you could probably go down to 100 grit, but just enough to get it roughed up enough that the new paint will stick to the old paint. You don't have to do that with flat or eggshell paint, but because this is a bathroom, it's got semi-gloss paint on it, and you always need to scuff up semi-gloss paint before you put new paint on it. So I got some color matched paint here that we picked up from the hardware store, and we'll just put some in our paint tray and get it on the wall. Get the roller nice and filled with paint. Okay, so I got the second coat of paint on, and we're pretty much finished. We just have to let the paint dry, and the color should match the surrounding paint just fine. Pretty good project. Thanks for coming along with me today. Hey, if you like this kind of content, please feel free to like the video. Consider commenting below if there was anything you liked or disliked about the way I performed it today. If you have any tips for me, hey, I'd love to read them. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much. We'll see you on the next one.